Okay, we're going to take a look now at some UIText methods to kind of manipulate UIText, change UIText, and so on. All right, so let's see. Now, just as a refresher, let's look at our game here that we're kind of shooting for. And you'll notice as you're playing the game, if I hit play, as I move around using my northwest, east, south, you'll see, I'm going to move kind of far away from my noise source, which is up here in the corner here, you'll see that these text fields are changing as things are going on, right? So the number of moves is changing. I'm feeling warmer. I'm feeling no different. I'm feeling maybe colder, and so on. So things are changing on the text as I move around, or even as I use up my battery here. Okay. So I toggle on and off, and you see even the battery level changes as a result of turning that on. So why do I do that? Well, because I might say, well, I'm over here. Let me turn the battery on, turn the flashlight on to see where it's at. I could use up my flashlight then, and I can't use it anymore. Right. So how do I manipulate text like that? Well, let's go over to our news scene, which has very little in it. It has our game manager in it. And the game manager, last we looked at it, I think we were doing some stuff with, oh, let's see, it was automatically closed. Sure, we'll recover our files. I don't know what exactly I did before. I was probably manipulating this sound in here, which we'll leave for now. I think that's okay. So if you checked out our other little lesson, that's what's going on in there. But let's go back over to our project here, and you'll see there is some hello world type text up here. That's this text element here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete that text just because. Let's see, I'll right click and say delete. Now say I want to add some text into the screen, I would just say right click, and I'm going to create UI text. I'm not going to use Text Mesh Pro because that's fancier and that can get you into trouble a little bit. We don't want to do that. So, well, we'll start off with hello world in our text there, and we will increase the font size to something big, say 32. And you'll notice we can no longer see our text. Now, why is that? Well, it's probably because the text has gotten, well, I'm in game mode here. Let's go back to the scene. And see our canvas, and double click on our text. You'll see an empty box here. And because the text is large, too large to fit in the box, we can't see it. So we'll go ahead and increase the size of the box. Okay. We also might want to do things like say, oh, okay, wrap, truncate, and so on. Best fit the box. Do that sort of thing. So if it changes, it will automatically change font size. Right? Some different things you can do. So we'll just set it for that we want it to shoot for 32-point text, but it'll do its best job to kind of give us that 32-point text. And we'll make it bigger here, and so on. All right, so now in the game, if I press play, we'll see our hello world. And we want to change that. And we will put another button in, just for the heck of it. And let's put a toggle in. Maybe we'll do that. So we go to UI, and we'll say, well, we'll put a button and a toggle. So button as a toggle, and we'll put a UI button in. And let's move them around a little bit. There's our button, and here is our toggle. And we'll call this one toggle 2, and we'll call this one button 2, just to distinguish it from these other ones that we have sitting around. And let's have button. We will change the text of the button. To do that, we say button. We drop down text, and we will say press me. And for toggle, we'll go to the text of the toggle, the label, we'll say toggle me. All right, so that's manipulating it using the Unity UI. That's easy enough to do. And I did the same thing with Hello World. I could just change that right there. And you'll notice this is a field called text. This field's called font and paragraph and color and so on. But right now we're just going to be wondering or working with the one that says text. All right. Now, in my game manager, that's where I'm putting all of my scripts for now. The game manager controls all of my scripts. So we'll go ahead and double click on that. And we will add a new function in here, or a new method. And we'll call it public void. It doesn't return any parameters. And it will be called hello Unity. It doesn't take any parameters. And in that, we're going to want to change the text of that hello world. So in order to do that, we're going to need a reference to that. So we can say public game object, and we'll call it text output. All right. And we will modify it. We'll say, okay, the text output. Oh, this should have been a lowercase because it's a variable. Text output. That's the game object. Now we need to get the text field of that. So we're going to go for get component. Now normally I'd say text here, and you'll notice it didn't give me anything text. There is no text. Now why is that? Well, that's because I'm not using Unity Engine .ui. Okay, have to say Unity Engine UI in order to be able to see these types of things. So now you'll see if I type capital TEX, this type, I can use it. Okay, this is called a generic function here, this get component, and we want to apply the text version of that get component. Right, so we get the text component of this object. And now that we have that component reference here, we can go ahead and change the text of that object. So we could say equals hello GSAS 2540, for example. All right. Let's save that. And we'll go back to Unity, and we'll press play. And it will not work. Well, it'll play, it still won't work. Watch, ready? Well, we haven't assigned anything. That function exists, but we haven't assigned it to any buttons yet. So we want to assign it to this press me button. So that is button 2. And we'll add, and the object that the script lives on is our game manager. Okay. Double click on that to go away. And the function that we're interested in is hello Unity. All right, so now they're attached. I press me. Still didn't work. Why not? Well, one other missing piece. Now look over here. You'll notice unassigned reference exception. The variable text output of game manager has not been assigned. This is kind of annoying at this point, that every time in this script, game manager, I have to make sure to assign, let's see, find it here. Here's the text object, drag it in, and if I put it there, now it'll work, right? I think it'll work, yep. So I do that, now it works. But that was annoying to have to change it that way every time, and I always forget. So how can we possibly get away without doing that? Well, let's just do that again just to show that it works. So you could be, changing that as a result of anything going on. You could say, okay, 12 lives left, 2 lives left, that sort of thing. But imagine that we don't want to have to change that every time. So we'll go into the game manager script, and we have an option here to say, okay, instead of doing this, having it public. Let's make it not public. Now, how would we get that text object without doing the drag and drop trick? So if I save it now, I'm going to do something slightly different. And you can do this for any game object. There's a built-in feature called, first I'm going to say text object. I need a reference for it, equals something, right? Or text output equals something. Now I need to find a reference for it. What I can do is say game object dot. So for the game object class, I'm going to use a method that is available to all via the game object class called find. Okay, and find, I'm going to pass it its name. Okay, so I have to know the name of the object that I'm trying to find here. So if I know that its name was, for example, text, I could then say text. Okay, so that will give me a reference to the game object named text. Save that. And you'll notice in our game manager, we no longer have that reference, and we're going to clear this. And if all goes well, if I typed everything in there, press me, something is not quite working. I messed something up. Surprised I didn't get an error. Text output.get component. Game object define, text output. That looks like that should be working. Let's see, what's going on? Well, this is a good case of using the debugger. So let's see, here and here, I'm going to set some breakpoints. I'm going to say attach to Unity. Go back to Unity here and press play. Okay, now it's stopped. You'll see it's there. All right, text object. It's currently null. Let me step over that. And what happened? Text output is text Unity game object. All right. That seems valid. All right, so we'll say continue. All right. And I'm going to press the button. There's our code. Text output, text Unity, get component text, set the text to that. Interesting. What did I do wrong? Text output. I'm surprised I'm not getting an error. Game object. Did I get the wrong game object? What am I looking at here? Oh, you know what? There's a bunch of things in here called text. So this might be one of these cases where it's best to call this something specific. I have a feeling something changed and it wasn't what we needed it to, what we wanted it to. So let's go ahead and change this to player text. Okay. So we're calling it something specific there, player text. All right. Let's try this. Oops. Stop the debugger. Player text. Save that. And I'm going to disable these breakpoints here. Save. Press play. All right, now it changed. Okay, so what must have happened is I had a bunch of different things called text in here. Now, because of that, it very well may have been changing the text inside one of these other buttons, because there were multiple things in my scene potentially named text that probably found this one and probably put the text in there. So one of the interesting things about a lot of Unity functions, especially when you do get component and find, sometimes you might find an array of things, or you might find a single one, or the first instance, and so on. So it's good to make sure that you have unique names for things. So now we've accomplished that. We said game object, text output. We found the specific game object called player text, and now we can use that and say text output dot get component name, and so on and so on. So that's one way to find out. Now we could do something even snazzier here. Snazzier? That's okay. Imagine this. We said we wanted to have a text component. Text, and this would be, we'll call it direct text. Okay. So this text, we want that to specify the actual text to change in here. So, because you can see down here, I still am jumping through this extra hoop here. All right. So I'm going to copy that and say right here, and I want my text direct, or direct text, that's what I call it. Direct text equals that. Okay? So now I can come down here and just say direct text dot text. Right, so there's lots of different ways you can actually reference Unity objects, and some of them are going to be a little bit more straightforward and streamlined than others. And this could be, at least, as they say, what, six of one, half dozen of another. Lots of ways to, I don't know, insert a cliche in here. But this demonstrates, the basic find a game object and store it as a reference here. You notice now it's private. And same here. Now we're storing a UIText object or component potentially, right? So we're getting the component here, and then we can directly manipulate the component. Now we can do other things as well. We could have said, okay, direct text. What are some other things we could change? Now you'll see there's lots of things here. Now we could say, I like to just go for, say, color equals, and there is a color reference. So now we need a red, a green, and a blue. So we'll say 1, 0, 0, and then an alpha value, meaning 1, it is not transparent. Now, let's see, is this, let's see, can we say, do we need to say new color? There we go. So now I'm going to change the text of that color. I'm going to make it red, and I believe that's going to be fully not transparent. I could just leave that out. There's this notion of alpha value. We're going to talk about that later, I guess. So we'll say just red. That should be red, green, and blue. So now our text should be, when I press that button, right now it's black, it turned red. Okay. Now, you can also even do things like change the font size, change whatever you want to change. You can manipulate the text in there. All right. So the main thing here is just to really show you that you can be changing that. Happen at, as a result of feedback to the user to say, you've moved the object, you got closer to this other thing, the distance decreased. The distance was decreasing between these two objects. Therefore, tell the player you got warmer. The distance increased. Therefore, make the output to the user colder, something like that. So this is some basic text manipulation using a script. All right, hopefully that helped give some insight into working on your project, and I'll continue to put up little shorter lessons like this